Lao Tzu stands at the edge of history, half hidden by time, legend, and silence. Unlike many philosophers whose lives are documented in detail, Lao Tzu appears more like a shadow moving quietly through ancient China. This uncertainty is not a weakness of his story. It is part of its meaning. Lao Tzu lived during a period of deep unrest. China was divided, unstable, and morally exhausted. The old traditions that once held society together were breaking down. Rulers competed for power. Wars were frequent. Laws multiplied, yet harmony disappeared. It was an age obsessed with control. Into this world emerged a man whose central teaching would be the opposite of control. Lao Tzu's name itself carries mystery. It means old master or old teacher. Some believe he was a real person. Others believe he was a symbolic figure, a collection of wisdom gathered over generations. What matters is not the certainty of his biography, but the clarity of his ideas. According to tradition, Lao Tzu served as a keeper of archives in the royal court of the Zhou dynasty. This role placed him at the heart of knowledge. He read ancient records, observed the rise and fall of rulers, and witnessed how ambition corrodes character. While others sought power or fame, Lao Tzu observed patterns. He saw that force creates resistance, that excessive rules invite rebellion, that striving produces exhaustion. The more society tried to dominate life, the more life slipped out of balance. Lao Tzu began to see that the deepest problems were not external. They were rooted in the human tendency to interfere, to push, to impose will upon the natural order. This insight became the foundation of Taoism. At the heart of Lao Tzu's teaching is the Tao. The Tao is not a god. It is not a law in the legal sense. It is not a doctrine. The Tao is the way things naturally unfold. It is the rhythm of nature, the flow of existence, the process through which all things arise, change, and return. The Tao cannot be grasped through forceful thinking. The moment one tries to define it rigidly, it slips away. This is why Lao Tzu begins with a paradox. The true Tao cannot be fully spoken. This does not mean the Tao is unknowable. It means it is experienced rather than controlled. Lao Tzu observed nature carefully. Water became one of his central metaphors. Water is soft, yet it wears down stone. It flows around obstacles instead of confronting them. It seeks the lowest places, yet nourishes all life. Water does not strive to dominate, and yet nothing can resist it. This was revolutionary thinking in a society obsessed with hierarchy, authority, and domination. Lao Tzu suggested that the strongest force in the universe is softness. This idea extended beyond nature into human life. He believed that individuals suffer because they resist reality. They struggle against what is, instead of moving with it. They chase desires endlessly, believing fulfillment lies in accumulation, status, and recognition. Lao Tzu saw desire as the root of unrest. Not desire itself, but excess desire. Desire that blinds people to simplicity. He taught that contentment arises not from having more, but from wanting less. This did not mean withdrawing completely from life. It meant engaging with life without obsession. Lao Tzu believed that when people live simply, society becomes stable. When leaders govern lightly, people govern themselves. This led to his radical political philosophy. Lao Tzu argued that the best ruler is barely noticed. The more a ruler interferes, the more problems arise. Excessive laws, punishments, and moral preaching only reveal the failure of leadership. True leadership aligns with the Tao. It guides without forcing, leads without dominating, acts without drawing attention. This principle is known as Wu Wei, often misunderstood as doing nothing. In truth, Wu Wei means non-forced action. It is action that arises naturally from understanding the situation. A skilled farmer does not pull on crops to make them grow. A skilled sailor does not fight the wind. A skilled leader does not impose unnecessary control. Wu Wei requires deep awareness, patience, and humility. Lao Tzu believed that wisdom grows when one stops trying to be clever. When knowledge becomes excessive, life becomes complicated. He warned against over-intellectualization, not because thinking is bad, but because thinking disconnected from life becomes empty. True wisdom is quiet. It listens more than it speaks. It observes more than it judges. It trusts the natural process. Lao Tzu writing reflects this spirit. The Tao Te Ching, the central text attributed to him, is brief but dense. Each line contains layers of meaning. It was never meant to be read quickly or analyzed aggressively. It was meant to be absorbed slowly, like water seeping into the ground. The language is poetic, indirect, and paradoxical. This was intentional. Lao Tzu wanted to bypass rigid thinking and speak directly to intuition. He believed that truth revealed itself when a mind stopped grasping. According to legend, Lao Tzu eventually grew tired of society. Disillusioned by corruption and ambition, he decided to leave civilization behind. As he approached the western border, a guard recognized his wisdom and asked him to record his teachings before departing. Lao Tzu agreed. He wrote the Tao Te Ching and then disappeared. Whether this story is factual or symbolic, it captures the essence of Lao Tzu philosophy. Wisdom does not seek followers. Truth does not demand recognition. The Tao does not announce itself. Lao Tzu influence spread quietly. It did not conquer through force or doctrine. It endured through resonance. His ideas shaped Chinese culture, medicine, art, martial arts, and spirituality. Taoism offered an alternative to rigid moralism and authoritarian rule. It taught that life flows best when not overmanaged. This philosophy did not reject discipline. It redefined it. Discipline was not control over others, but harmony within oneself. Lao Tzu believed that inner peace precedes social order. A society at war with itself is a reflection of individuals at war with their own nature. To restore balance, one must return to simplicity. This return was not backward. It was inward. As Lao Tzu teachings deepen, the focus moves from society and leadership into the inner life of the individual. For Lao Tzu, the outer world is always a reflection of the inner state. Disorder in society mirrors disorder within the human heart and mind. He believed that most human suffering begins with misunderstanding the self. People assume they're separate from the world around them. They see themselves as isolated individuals struggling against life. Lao Tzu rejected this completely. He taught that the self is not a fixed object. It is a process constantly changing, just like nature. Trying to hold onto a rigid identity creates tension and fear. When people say this is who I am, they close themselves off from growth. The Tao flows through everything, including the self. When a person aligns with this flow, life becomes lighter. One of Lao Tzu's most important ideas is emptiness. At first glance, emptiness sounds negative, but Lao Tzu saw emptiness as usefulness. He used simple examples. A cup is useful not because of the clay, but because of the empty space inside it. A house is useful not because of its walls, but because of the empty space where life happens. Emptiness allows function. In human life, Lao Tzu believed inner emptiness creates clarity. When the mind is cluttered with desires, opinions, and ambitions, it becomes noisy and restless. When a mind is empty, it becomes receptive. This emptiness is not ignorance. It is openness. Lao Tzu encouraged people to empty themselves of unnecessary wants, not because wanting is evil, but because excess wanting distorts perception. When people want too much, they stop seeing clearly. When they chase too much, they lose what they already have. Simplicity restores balance. Lao Tzu did not preach poverty or withdrawal from life. He taught moderation. Enough is better than excess. Quiet satisfaction is better than restless hunger. This applies not only to material possessions, but to emotions. Lao Tzu observed that extreme emotions exhaust the spirit. Excessive joy, anger, pride, or sorrow pull the mind out of balance. The Taoist path seeks emotional steadiness, not emotional suppression, but emotional harmony. Like nature, Emotions should rise and fall naturally. Problems arise when people cling to them or resist them. Another central idea in Lao Tzu philosophy is humility. In ancient China, humility was often seen as weakness. Lao Tzu turned this idea upside down. He taught that humility is strength. The lowest places collect water. The softest things endure. The quietest forces last the longest. Humility allows adaptability. Arrogance creates rigidity. Lao Tzu warned that those who seek recognition lose alignment with the Tao. When people act for praise, they become dependent on external validation. True fulfillment comes from acting without attachment to outcome. This does not mean indifference. It means freedom. When a person acts sincerely and releases the need for reward, their actions become lighter and more effective. This principle deeply connects with Wu Wei. Wu Wei is often misunderstood as laziness or passivity. Lao Tzu never meant inactivity. He meant effortless action. Effortless does not mean without effort. It means without resistance. When a person understands a situation deeply, action becomes natural. There is no forcing, no tension. A skilled musician does not struggle with the instrument. A skilled speaker does not fight for words. A skilled person moves naturally within circumstances. Lao Tzu believed that struggle often comes from acting against reality. People push when they should yield. They cling when they should release. They speak when they should listen. Wu Wei teaches responsiveness instead of control. This idea applies to everyday life. When facing conflict, Lao Tzu would advise softness over confrontation. Yielding does not mean surrendering values. It means choosing harmony over ego. He believed that force invites force. Violence invites resistance. Even when force succeeds, it leaves damage behind. Softness, on the other hand, disarms opposition. This does not mean being weak. It means being flexible. Lao Tzu also reflected deeply on language. He believed words can point toward truth, but they can never capture it fully. This is why Taoist texts often use paradox. Paradox disrupts rigid thinking. It invites intuition. For example, Lao Tzu often speaks of knowing without knowing, doing without doing, leading without leading. These phrases are not riddles. They describe states where awareness replaces control. He believed that over-reliance on language distances people from direct experience. People talk about life instead of living it. The Tao is lived, not explained. Lao Tzu teachings also emphasize returning. Everything that rises eventually falls. Everything that grows eventually declines. Everything that moves outward eventually returns inward. This is not pessimism. It is balance. Lao Tzu believed suffering increases when people resist this natural cycle. They fear decline, aging, and loss. They cling to youth, success, and control. Acceptance restores peace. To accept change is not to give up. It is to move with life rather than against it. This perspective shaped Taoist views on aging, death, and impermanence. Death was not an enemy. It was a return. Life and death were seen as transformations within the Tao. Fear arises when people believe they are separate from this process. Lao Tzu teachings invite trust. Trust in nature. Trust in change. Trust in simplicity. This trust reduces anxiety. When people stop trying to control everything, they recover inner calm. This calm does not make life dull. It makes it clear. As Lao Tzu philosophy spread, it offered an alternative path, not one of conquest or ambition, but of harmony and understanding. It attracted those tired of struggle, those seeking peace without withdrawal, those seeking wisdom without domination. Lao Tzu did not promise success. He offered balance. And in a chaotic world, balance itself becomes a form of mastery. As Lao Tzu thought continues to unfold, the focus turns toward how a human being lives morally without relying on rigid rules or enforced virtue. This is one of the most radical aspects of his philosophy. Lao Tzu did not believe morality should be imposed. He believed true morality arises naturally when people live in harmony with the Tao. He observed that when societies obsess over moral codes, something deeper has already gone wrong. Excessive rules are a sign that natural harmony has been lost. When people are deeply connected to life, they do not need to be told how to act. Compassion, fairness, and restraint arise spontaneously. Lao Tzu warned that artificial morality creates hypocrisy. People follow rules outwardly while remaining inwardly divided. They act moral while thinking selfishly. True virtue, in Lao Tzu's view, is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek recognition. It does not calculate reward. This kind of virtue flows effortlessly, like water. He distinguished between natural goodness and forced goodness. Forced goodness relies on effort, discipline, and constant self-monitoring. Natural goodness emerges from clarity and simplicity. This does not mean abandoning ethical responsibility. It means rooting ethics in awareness rather than fear. Lao Tzu believed that when people stop striving for superiority, competition dissolves. When they stop chasing status, envy fades. When they stop clinging to possessions, generosity becomes easy. Selflessness, for Lao Tzu, was not self-denial. It was self-forgetting. When people forget themselves, they act more humanely. This idea is subtle. It does not mean erasing individuality. It means releasing obsession with the ego. The ego, Lao Tzu believed, creates suffering by constantly comparing. Better than, worse than, more than, less than. Comparison fragments the mind. The Taoist path dissolves comparison by grounding awareness in the present moment. Lao Tzu encouraged people to live close to ordinary life. Eating when hungry, resting when tired, speaking when necessary, remaining silent when words add nothing. This simplicity is not dull. It is deeply alive. He believed that complexity drains vitality. People complicate life with unnecessary goals, opinions, and expectations. The Taoist path strips life back to essentials. This approach also shapes Lao Tzu's understanding of leadership on a personal level. Not leadership over others, but leadership over oneself. Self-leadership begins with restraint, knowing when not to act, knowing when to step back, knowing when to let things unfold. Most mistakes, Lao Tzu believed, come from impatience. People rush. They push outcomes. They interfere prematurely. The Tao unfolds in its own time. Lao Tzu taught that patience is not passive waiting. It is active trust. Trust that life, when not obstructed, moves toward balance. This trust reduces anxiety and tension. Lao Tzu also spoke extensively about strength and weakness. He observed that what appears weak often outlasts what appears strong. Hard objects break. Soft objects bend. In nature, the flexible survives. He applied this insight to human behavior. Those who refuse to bend eventually break. Those who remain rigid lose adaptability. Flexibility allows resilience. This does not mean lacking principles. It means applying principles with wisdom rather than force. Lao Tzu encouraged yielding as a strategy, not a surrender. Yielding allows one to conserve energy, observe clearly, and respond effectively. He believed that confrontation should be the last resort. Silence, withdrawal, and redirection often achieve more than argument. Lao Tzu also reflected on success and failure. He believed that success often carries the seeds of its own downfall. When people cling to success, they fear loss. Fear leads to control. Control leads to imbalance. True mastery lies in letting go even of achievement. This idea deeply challenges modern thinking. Lao Tzu suggested that finishing well means knowing when to stop. Excess ambition disturbs harmony. He encouraged people to step back after completion, allowing space for renewal. This applies to work, relationships, and personal goals. In relationships, Lao Tzu emphasized gentleness. Trying to change others leads to resistance. Accepting others invites openness. He believed that love thrives in freedom, not possession. Possession suffocates. Freedom nourishes. This insight extends to parenting, friendship, and partnership. Lao Tzu also spoke about knowledge. He distinguished between accumulated information and wisdom. Accumulating facts does not guarantee understanding. Wisdom comes from seeing patterns and letting go of excess. He warned that cleverness often blinds people to truth. The more clever someone becomes, the more they manipulate. Wisdom simplifies. Lao Tzu encouraged unlearning, letting go of unnecessary ideas, returning to a beginner state. This beginner state is open, curious, and unburdened. Children, he observed, live close to the Tao. They are flexible, curious, and present. As people age, they accumulate tension and rigidity. The Taoist path is a return to natural ease. Lao Tzu also addressed fear. He believed fear arises from attachment. Attachment to life, to identity, to outcomes. When people trust the Tao, fear loses its grip. This does not mean becoming careless. It means recognizing that life flows beyond individual control. Trust replaces anxiety. This trust is cultivated through stillness. Lao Tzu valued stillness deeply. Stillness allows awareness to settle. In stillness, clarity emerges. He believed that answers reveal themselves when the mind is quiet. Stillness does not require isolation. It can exist within daily activity. One can act calmly, speak calmly, listen calmly. The Tao is not found by escaping life. It is found by inhabiting life fully, without resistance. This approach transforms ordinary moments into meaningful ones. Washing hands, walking, breathing, observing. Each moment becomes sufficient. Lao Tzu teachings do not promise enlightenment as a dramatic event. They offer gradual alignment. Alignment with nature. Alignment with oneself. Alignment with life. This alignment reduces suffering not by solving every problem, but by dissolving the struggle against problems. In this way, Lao Tzu philosophy is not about mastering the world. It is about ceasing the need to dominate it. As Lao Tzu ideas spread quietly through generations, they did not form a rigid system or demand allegiance. Taoism did not grow through conquest or authority. It grew through resonance. People recognized something familiar in its simplicity, something they had forgotten but never truly lost. Lao Tzu's influence reached far beyond philosophy. It shaped the way people healed, fought, painted, governed, and lived. Traditional Chinese medicine reflects Taoist balance. Health is not the elimination of symptoms, but the restoration of harmony. Illness is seen as imbalance, not punishment. Treatment seeks to realign energy rather than attack the body. This mirrors Lao Tzu's belief that force creates resistance. Healing, like living, works best when guided gently. Martial arts also absorb Taoist principles. Styles influenced by Taoism emphasize fluidity, redirection, and timing. Victory comes not from overpowering an opponent, but from using their force against itself. This is Wu Wei in motion. Even Chinese art and poetry carry Taoist fingerprints. Empty space in paintings is as important as ink. Silence between words carries meaning. Restraint enhances beauty. Lao Tzu's understanding of emptiness became a creative force. Politically, Taoism offered a counterweight to authoritarian control. While other traditions emphasized law and hierarchy, Taoism reminded rulers that over-governing weakens society. The best government, Lao Tzu argued, creates conditions where people barely notice its presence. When people live naturally, harmony emerges without enforcement. This philosophy never disappeared. It survived dynasties, invasions, and modernization, not by resisting change, but by flowing with it. In modern times, Lao Tzu ideas resonate even more deeply. Modern life is fast, loud, and overloaded. Information never stops. Productivity is praised. Rest is neglected. People feel exhausted, anxious, and disconnected. Lao Tzu offers a different measure of success. Not accumulation, not speed, not dominance, but balance. His philosophy does not reject ambition. It questions blind ambition. It does not reject effort. It questions unnecessary effort. It does not reject progress. It questions progress without wisdom. Lao Tzu would ask simple questions. Is this effort aligned with life? Is this desire necessary? Is this struggle self-created? These questions gently dismantle stress. Applying Lao Tzu teachings does not require belief. It requires observation. Notice where force is used unnecessarily. Notice where control replaces trust. Notice where simplicity has been lost. Small adjustments restore harmony. Slowing down does not mean falling behind. It means moving in rhythm. Letting go does not mean losing. It means freeing energy. Silence does not mean emptiness. It means space. Lao Tzu philosophy encourages listening more than speaking, observing more than reacting, allowing more than interfering. This creates inner calm. Calm does not eliminate challenges. It changes how challenges are met. Instead of panic, there is clarity. Instead of resistance, there is adaptability. Instead of exhaustion, there is endurance. Lao Tzu also reminds us that life is cyclical. Growth is followed by rest, expansion by contraction, effort by release. Ignoring these cycles leads to burnout. Honoring them restores vitality. This is especially relevant in sleep. Sleep itself is a return, a surrender to the Tao. The body and mind release control and allow natural restoration. Lao Tzu would see sleep not as inactivity, but as alignment. Letting go is not failure. It is wisdom. As people age, Lao Tzu teachings offer comfort. Aging is not decline, but transformation. Strength shifts from force to understanding, from speed to insight. Acceptance becomes power. Lao Tzu's view of death is equally gentle. Death is not an enemy. It is a return to the Tao. Fear dissolves when life is seen as a continuous process rather than a possession. This perspective brings peace. Lao Tzu never sought disciples. He never built institutions. He left no rigid doctrine, and yet his influence endures, because his teaching speaks to something timeless. The need to rest, the need to simplify, the need to trust life again. In a world that constantly demands more, Lao Tzu offers permission to be enough, to stop forcing, to stop striving, to stop resisting what is already moving naturally. The Tao flows whether we cooperate or not, but cooperation brings ease. Lao Tzu invites us to step back, soften, and listen. In doing so, life becomes quieter, clearer, lighter, not because problems disappear, but because we stop fighting the current. And in that quiet flow, rest arrives naturally.